welcome back to my adventure. In this series, I'm on my way to recreate this fashion plate designed by LaMode in 1903. And with the combinations and hip pad made, it is time to give some real shape and structure to this dress. And that, of course, is the corset. And before people ask, yes, the measurements you're about to see and hear were the standard for the correct proportions of the early 1900s. To get the proper shape, the first place to look was Kathy Hayes' video on her process for making this exact corset. A book that she was following to get the correct proportions was Turn of the Century Fashion Patterns and Tailoring Techniques by S.S. Gordon. In the back of the book, it gives a nice diagram of the correct measurements the body should be for your height. My height is 5 foot 5 inches, or 165 centimeters. That meant that my finished proportions should be a bust of 39 inches, waist of 28 inches, and hips of 45 inches. My understanding is that from the side of the body, you would have a bigger rump or hips and fuller bust and a small waist to create that iconic S-bend curve as seen in many fashion plates of the time. When making this corset, it was fantastic to see the original from the Symington Collection at Leicestershire County Council. Sarah Nicol, a worker there, has been a tremendous help in this endeavor for my dissertation. The photos that she has given me of the bust bodice and this corset are invaluable to researching and interpreting how they would have been made. It should be noted that my waist without a corset is 31.5 inches, and I was going down to 28 inches, and that was not unheard of. The body is squishy, for lack of a better term, and can be adapted to a different shape with the help of a corset. I will let you know right now so you all can breathe a sigh of relief. I was not in any pain while wearing this, and I was not tight lacing. In fact, this was actually the most comfortable corset I have worn. More on how the look and the function is later, but for now, let's see how I went about making this and interpreting it.
Okay, so we got that bust sewn in. It looks so much nicer. I'm so happy with how the bust actually turned out on this one. The stitching is really nice. It doesn't do the weird thing with the tension anymore. Mostly because I loosened the stitch just slightly because it was really tight on the other one, and I also loosened the tension just a little bit. So now what this has to do is that, so on the original corset pattern is that these front panels, so like these are two pieces, they'll get stitched together, but this is how the corset will sit, and then there's this piece which is the right side, which is right there, so that sits, you know, right down on that seam. And then there's that little gap right up there, which is supposed to take weight off of the breasts and stop it from, you know, cinching really in and pushing everything up. It's supposed to be a health corset. It's still a corset. It's still, you know, cinching your body in just slightly. It's not tight-laced. But anyway, so what the original is that these front pieces were actually made a modern, what we consider the bagged out way. So they were made inside out, turned right side out, with the bottom edge being unfinished, and I think this edge being unfinished too, just from how it needs to get put into the rest of the corset. So you don't have any boning channels actually sewn onto this, they're sewn in, so it makes boning channels when you have these two pieces together. You'll so it wants the top sewn up and turned out, so this will get clipped, that'll turn out, this will be, you know, a finished thing, and this is supposed to get caught into this seam here, so that way this is finished off, and then that gets top stitched down. What I don't know is how they would have done this. So what I know how to do is that, you know, this needs to get put in here, so it needs to get sewn like this, so that way when it turns out, this is the right side then, and everything. Was this turned and then sewn down on top like this, so that way the only actual bagged out thing is this top curve that's finished off already, and then this just gets turned under, or like clipped, turned under, and then stitched down on top. I think that's how they would have done it. I don't think they would have done, you know, the thing that we do if we want to enclose something in a seam is put the thing we want enclosed between the two pieces, sandwich it, sew this up, and then turn it out, and then it becomes, you know, that sort of thing. I don't think that's what they're going for. So what I think I'm going to do is sew the top up and then turn under this and top stitch that down and leave this edge raw because the panel that gets attached here, panel 3, does the same exact thing. Panel 3 will get turned over and then top stitched down here, and this raw edge will be enclosed, and then that finishes off this panel. Alright, so I haven't done anything. I went into campus because I needed to ask a few questions from my course tutor, but she wasn't there, and I don't know if she said that before, that she wasn't going to be there, but I spent 40 minutes there realizing that I don't think she's going to be in today, so I came back home, so I was there for 40 minutes. Anyway, that's beside the point. I have this piece of the cotton batting that I used for the hip pad, because on this corset there you can see that this piece is similar in shape, just wider, and that's because this actually overlaps like so. There was a mohair piece of fabric that was 12 inches by 2 inches, which is this. Well, this shape, this isn't mohair. I don't have that type of wool, and my guess is that it was put there to act as, you know, a comfort thing. So this is stitched in between these two layers with a slight hem like so. So that way this is out of the way because the busk sits here, or this is sewn in between. So the busk is on top of this, essentially. I think that's what it is. I think that the busk gets situated on top like so, and then this gets sewn like this, and then it pokes through, so that way there's a comfort barrier, so that way there's this extra little bit of padding. I think that's how it is. It also says, like, on hers, when she was writing down, like, not instructions, but sort of little notes, was there's a centimeter hem on the inside, a centimeter hem at the bottom, and then a 7/16, which is about half an inch, or slightly under, where it's turned and then turned again. I think what is going to happen is that we're going to turn, I don't know how to, like, I'm interpreting it as this gets turned like so, because this is where it's at. So if that gets, if that's the width of that and that gets turned up, I think what happens is that this gets turned, this busk goes, oops, wrong way. So that gets turned over like so. This busk gets placed right on top of that, so there's a double layer. And then the busk gets stitched around so it stays in place. I think that's what it's I think that's what this piece is telling me to do and what she's telling me to do based on her measurements. So this is panel 3, which is sort of like considered the side front, if you want to call it. So it has these two channels that run diagonally down, and then two channels on both sides of the seam. And there's 1/4 inch seams, so that is what I have done. I've drawn on my seam lines, so that way when I go to sew this and I do wrong sides and I do right sides together, I'll know exactly where I need to sew and not catch the twill tape, because this will be sewn down to make the boning channel. This is one of the steel bones that goes here, that gives shape and structure to the side of the body. So this goes straight down this point, essentially. And yeah, so what I'm gonna do is, because this is twill tape, but the twill tape I think is just, it's like I can get it right at the edges, but I'm worried that this might be too thin. Well, actually,
the lining layer with some patten because this is lovely and has some nice shape, but also has really nice flexibility. I can just hear like actual fashion corset makers out there.
Alright, so I'll tie this in when I get the last of the boning in. So the last bit that needs boning is these two front panels, and that's it. Other than that, all the boning is, well, actually I have two more pieces of boning, although I really don't know if I need it. I'll probably put it in just because it'll be historically accurate to make this as correct as possible, but I just want to point out there's still this much room in the hips, which is why I'm probably going to end up putting hip padding in, but just look at, just look at the shape that this gives me already. I just measured my waist. It is at 29 inches. I need to get down 1 more inch, but if we look, I'm going to flip this to the back. But if you look in the back, this is actually like already butting up edge to edge, and it's pretty comfortable already. So what I think I might do is leave it as is right now.
Once the corset was done up with the last of the boning, it was time to see the finished result. The pictures here are the final product that came out of the sewing endeavor. My waist is able to get reduced down to 27.5 inches, but I will make it so that I only go down to 28 to keep the correct proportions. This should be said that after wearing this corset for a while, the fabric has started to rip where the eyelets have the most strain, at the waist. This will be fixed in the future, but it is good to know that a reinforcement piece will need to be put in place to stop the tearing of the fabric at those eyelets. With the corset now done, it's time to look at the next structural undergarment, and that is the bust bodice. Please remember to like and subscribe for more content, and please do leave comments as this will help with my analytical data that needs to be collected for my dissertation. Until next time, happy sewing.